Welcome to the 97 Republic YouTube channel, where I react to UFC news and live events. So I kindly ask that you hit the like button and the subscribe button, as that would really help this channel grow. And to ensure that you don't skip a beat, feel free to click the notification bell as well. That way you can ensure that you don't miss any of the action. I really hope you enjoy this one. Main card predictions and analysis for UFC Fight Night Manel Kape versus Asu Almabayev starting right now. So we start off the main card in the welterweight division. Barlow takes on Sam Patterson. Now with regards to both fighters' respective careers, Barlow has had 9 professional fights, Sam has had 50, where Danny has managed to win all of his fights and Sam Patterson managed to win 12, lose 2 and end up drawing 1. And with regards to the UFC, Danny has had 2 fights inside of the UFC, 1 fight on Dana White's Contender Series, and Sam has had 3 fights inside of the UFC, 1 of them coming on Dana White's Contender Series. A very common theme for this main card is a lot of fighters actually fought on Dana White's Contender Series, and you'll see that as we move on. But with regards to their UFC careers, somewhat different, seeing that obviously Danny went on to win both of his fights. Sam ended up losing his debut and then went on to win his next 2 fights. Sam made his debut at lightweight, and it's odd seeing that Sam is 6'3". He is an exceptionally tall guy. How he made lightweight, don't know, but he debuted in as a lightweight. And funny enough, in his debut, he fought Ashmus and for some reason didn't want to touch gloves. Immediately disregarded Ashmus's attempt to touch gloves prior to the fight actually starting. And then he got his bell rung in a way I've never seen before. Rocked is an understatement. So Sam basically went for a kick. Ashmus caught it, and as Sam was busy falling down, Ashmus connected with a left hook that knocked him out mid-air. Have never seen something like this in my life. It was so bad that Sam Patterson, a lot of seconds after the fight, was still rocked and wanted to potentially fight the referee due to the fact that he didn't know what was going on. That is how bad it was. So safe to assume, after that fight, Sam Patterson ended up touching gloves in the next 2 fights. But when we look at both fighters' respective skill set, both men are really tall for welterweight, especially Sam Patterson. He's 6'3", and Danny Barlow is 6 foot flat. Tall men for the weight class. With regards to their skill set, I'd say Danny Barlow is much more of a natural striker, has good striking, is very quick, is very good at dictating range, throws a lot of kicks and throws a lot of punches as well, has a wide variety of strikes that he actually uses inside of the octagon. When he throws flying knees, loves that, he loves the old flying knee, and basically doesn't throw a lot of combinations, throws a lot of singular shots, and tends to need his opponent to be active as well. What we saw in Danny Barlow's last fight against Veterinikov, where Nikolai didn't really engage, and that made it difficult for Danny Barlow to actually excel in the way that he strikes. Not because he's out and out a counter striker, but just prefers to also be offensive as well as defensive whenever he strikes. And seeing that Nikolai didn't really engage that much, it kind of took away from Danny Barlow's strengths. When looking at Sam Patterson, he's a good striker, uses his kicks well, has a good jab, especially when you're a taller fighter, you need that. But I'd say where Sam excels is on the ground, where he managed to finish all of his opponents inside the UFC via submission, has a really good ground game, and his road to victory would be to get this fight on the ground. With that being said, I'm picking Danny Barlow to win this fight. Genuinely feel like Danny is a much better striker, very more technical, and with regards to his frame, he's very heavy, looks very heavy for the division, a big guy. Don't think that Sam will be able to take him down as easily as he did in his 2 fights prior to this one. So I do think Danny Barlow stops the takedowns and manages to win, and I'm gonna say win via knockout, seeing that he really has power. He's looking for that knockout punch and looking to put an exclamation mark on his performance. picking Danny Barlow to win. Then going on to our second fight in the featherweight division, where we have Amil versus William Gomis. Now, when looking at Amil's record, he has had 10 fights in his professional career, managed to win all 10 of them, where Gomis has had 16 fights in his professional career, managed to win 4 of them, lost 2. And when looking at the UFC career, Gomis has had 4 fights inside the UFC, managed to win all of them, and Amil has had 2 fights inside the UFC, managed to win both of them. 4 on Dana White's Contender Series prior to that, as I previously mentioned, common theme. 1 on Dana White's Contender Series, then went to the UFC. Now, when looking at both fighters' particular skill set, when looking at how they match up against one another, William Gomis is a good striker and predominantly is considered to be a striker. Would mix it up if he has to, but prefers the fight playing out on the feet and likes to dictate range, seeing that he's a tall figure for featherweight. Likes to dictate range, uses a lot of kicks. It is very explosive for a tall, lanky guy, and basically has good power. And for some reason, this card is a card where we have fighters participating in it that has had some crazy shit happen in their fights. Where William Gomis, in one of his 4 fights inside the UFC, the only one he's won by a stoppage, was the weirdest stoppage you'd ever see in your life, where he basically threw a body kick, threw a left body kick to his opponent, and ended up hitting him on the hip. But as his foot basically just slid off the body, it touched his cup. And then the fighter felt like, his opponent felt like he got hurt illegally. So basically, touched his groin, telling the referee that he got a low blow. Referee didn't see it that way. He thought the guy wasn't going to continue. Waved the fight off. Gomis via TKO. Yeah. Doesn't make sense. Go watch it. Go watch it. Basically, yeah, this happened. So, very interesting. Very interesting to say the least. And you'll see as we progress, we've had weird stuff happen to fighters on this particular card. But Gomis is very, very technical and basically prefers it playing out on the feet. Where Amil, if I told you that this guy fought like a single father that is drunk in a brothel, it would be an understatement. For some reason, Amil, who is very technical, can be very technical, has good footwork, good striking, good kicks, good punches, he is quick, has good wrestling. For some reason, he just wants to brawl and turn the fight into a Quentin Tarantino movie, where he just bites down on his mouthpiece and starts swinging like an absolute madman. And here for it. And we saw that materialize in both his UFC fights. When looking at it, don't really know who it benefits whenever he goes into that reckless mode. But when looking at my prediction, I honestly think Gomis is gonna win. Seeing that, I think Amil is gonna be reckless and he's gonna start brawling, and I think William Gomis is too technical. In almost every fight Gomis has fought inside of the UFC, he's been an underdog in every single one of them and managed to win every single one of them. Now sure, his last fight against Brito, questionable. It might have ended up losing that. Might say got lucky. But ended up winning and got the split decision victory. So still counts as a win. Do think if Amil doesn't take Gomis down, I think Gomis wins this fight. I think he actually knocks out Amil, seeing that it almost happened in Haider's first fight inside the UFC. So I could see that happening. William Gomis, let's say by a knockout, round 2. Then moving on to our third fight inside of the lightweight division. A lot of expectations regarding myself for this fight. Nasrat Haqparast versus Esteban Ribovics. Now, whenever I make a prediction, most of the time, let's say 98% of the time, I consider myself to be unbiased, due to the fact that I don't really feel like I have a dog in the fight. If ever I do, would 100% tell the audience that I do. And in this one I do. I'm a massive, could not describe how big of a fan I am of Esteban Ribovics. But with that being said, looking at both fighters' respective careers, both inside and outside the UFC, Nasrat has had 22 fights, managed to win 17 of them, where Ribovics has had 15 fights and managed to win 14 of them. Inside of the UFC, Nasrat Haqparast has had 13 fights where he managed to win 9 of them, and Ribovics has had 4 fights and he managed to win 3 of them. Now, when looking at it, a massive discrepancy with regards to UFC experience, where not that much when looking at overall experience. Nasrat has been inside the UFC for a long time. He's on a 4-fight winning streak, and looking at his skill set, he's a good striker, predominantly a kickboxer. Would probably mix it up if he really has to, but tends to not do that at any time whenever it's not necessary. Looking at his 9 wins, 7 of them has come via decision. Only 2 of them has come via knockout. So safe to say, he's a volume striker. But he does have a coveted left overhand and basically has caused damage with that particular shot in the past. Where Esteban could also be considered to be a volume striker. And Esteban's base is boxing, where Nasrat obviously has more of a kickboxing base. You see, when you look at Esteban Ribovics' fights, he has his hands up a lot of the times, does eat a lot of shots, but due to the fact that his guard is that good, not a lot of them land flush. When Nasrat also eats a lot of shots, especially when looking at some of his fights, has felt punches, a lot of them, in his UFC career, but has a really good chin. Apart from Dover, no one has been able to knock out Nasrat Haqparast. And when looking at this fight, do think that this fight will probably go the distance. I don't see either men getting knocked out due to the fact that both are extremely durable. And with that being said, looking at volume, I do tend to think that Nasrat will probably have better volume with regards to the amount of strikes he throws. Do think that Esteban would have more damage in his strikes. Seeing that, I kind of see this fight playing out the exact same way as Ribovics versus Zellhuber. And if you haven't watched that fight, do yourself a favor, right? Avoid responsibility for a few minutes and go and revisit that fight. Watch that fight. It is honestly one of the best 3-round fights I have ever seen in my life, where everything happened and to the point where you didn't know what to expect, even though you saw everything. Could have gone either way. Could have gone either way, to say the least, with Esteban getting dropped early in the 3rd round. Then basically got hit in the groin, or was it an eye poke? Got an eye poke, basically took that time to recover, played the Uno reverse card on Daniel Zellhuber, and basically just teed off on his face. And then as it went on, and Esteban started to obviously feel it because he's throwing so much punches, Zellhuber comes back. Just watch it. Absolutely insane. And when we look at both Nasrat and Esteban, they do tend to throw in a lot of kicks. Now obviously for Nasrat it's common, seeing that he's a kickboxer, but with regards to Esteban, seeing that he has a predominant boxing stance, he does actually tend to throw a lot of kicks. And we saw in his knockout against Terence McKinney the impact of one of those kicks. And with regards to both men's weakness, probably say wrestling, where we've seen Nasrat get taken down, get dominated to a unanimous decision victory. We saw the same happen to Esteban Ribovics in his UFC debut, where he got taken down 11 times. 11. I could repeat that sentence and it'd still be 8 times less than Esteban Ribovics got taken down. But he learned from it, and in his second fight actually managed to take his opponent down. Don't think we'll see a lot of takedowns in this fight. However, I'm picking Esteban Ribovics to win due to the fact that I'm biased. I do think that he will actually be able to cause more damage than Nasrat. I tend to usually go with the more experienced fighter. However, picking Esteban Ribovics, I said it was going to be biased. Yeah, forgive me. Then going into our co-main event in the middleweight division, Cody Brundage versus Julian Marquez. Now, when looking at both fighters' respective professional careers, Cody Brundage has had 16 professional fights, won 10 of them. Julian Marquez has had 14 professional fights, won 9 of them. But tends to take a turn for the worse when we look at their respective UFC careers, where Brundage has had 10 fights within UFC, won 4 of them, lost 5 of them, had 1 no contest. Julian Marquez has had 7 fights inside of the UFC, won 3 of them, lost 4 of them. So a question you might be asking, why are these men still inside of the UFC? Entertainment value is the answer. Both men could go on a 15-fight losing streak and they would still be inside of the UFC, and no objection whatsoever from me. Never a dull moment when either men step inside of the octagon. If we look at Cody Brundage's UFC career, he has won via every single possible way apart from a decision victory. Knockout victory, he's done it. Submission victory, he's done it. Disqualification victory, received that. Slam knockout, yeah, has that as well. The guy is basically the polar opposite of Barlow Muhammad. The only decision Brundage sees is in the morning when he has to decide what he's going to wear that day. That's it. That is it. And when looking at Julian Marquez, basically the same applies. Now, obviously not to his victories, but doesn't really see a decision when Julian Marquez fights. You could basically bet your uncle right now that this fight, the judges aren't seeing it even if they're watching it on television. This fight ends within 3 rounds due to the fact that both men, not the best cardio, but tend to do everything with reckless abandonment, and exactly what every single fan appreciates, where they put everything on the line and someone is getting sent to Mars, and it is massive fan. Really looking forward to this fight. When looking at both fighters' particular skill set, Cody Brundage is considered to be a wrestler, even though not the best wrestler, and has incredible power in his hands. That's why he's basically started to take a more striking approach due to the fact that he has really good power in those hands. Julian Marquez is overall, I'd say, somewhat of, I'm not going to say a complete mixed martial artist, but tends to be okay wherever the fight takes place. Can initiate in wrestling exchanges, does initiate well in striking exchanges. The only problem is both men are susceptible to get hit, and do not think either man has the best chin. Where Julian Marquez has lost 3 consecutive fights leading up to this one, all 3 of them has come by a knockout. So vulnerable with regards to both men, especially with striking, where Julian Marquez actually really excels on the ground and has a good submission game, where he has won via anaconda choke, has won via guillotine, I think twice, really good submissions, and has a lot of power, especially with how he initiates any sort of submission whenever he's on top, when the fight plays out on the ground. Where Cody Brundage, basically, that doesn't matter. Either he's pounding you from the top and you try and sink in an armbar and you get slammed on your head, or he will probably just knock you down on the feet, the same he did to Rodolfo Vieira. Gonna be interesting. Definitely picking Cody Brundage to win this fight due to the fact that I think he has better cardio. I think all round he's probably better, seeing that he's fundamentally a wrestler but does have the power to basically knock out Julian Marquez, with the knockout being there. It will be there. The opportunity to knock Marquez out will always be there. Then moving on to the main event, Manel Kape versus Asu Almabayev inside of the flyweight division. Now, with regards to their professional careers, I did make a video on both men and basically looking at their professional mixed martial arts careers, with the emphasis being on the UFC. And you can just click on that link and it would take you to that video. But both men are somewhat similarly experienced when looking at their professional mixed martial arts career, where Kape has had 27 fights and Almabayev has had 23. But with regards to the UFC, Kape has had 8 fights, Almabayev has had 4. So Kape has twice the amount of fights than Almabayev has had within the UFC. And when looking at opponents, do think that Manel Kape has fought better opponents than Almabayev, seeing that he's fought Kaya Sakura, he has fought Alexandre Pantoja, so he's seen what the top of the flyweight division looks like, inside and outside of the UFC, where Almabayev hasn't fought that level of competition yet. When looking at how they stylistically match up, basically the striker versus the grappler, where Manel Kape, a lot of emphasis on striking, does have good wrestling defense, but prefers the fight standing and basically has good volume. He's a good technical striker and avoids getting hit most of the time, where he's really explosive, really quick, and that's basically what Manel would want out of this fight. Where Almabayev, the exact opposite, likes to exchange and have wrestling exchanges, likes to be able to take his opponent down, would love to have the fight play out on the ground, and that's basically the road to victory for both. Manel wants to win, keep the fight standing. Almabayev wants to win, have this fight go to the ground. But with saying that, with regards to my prediction, I'm picking Almabayev to win. Whenever I have the opportunity to pick a wrestler when he fights a striker, definitely picking the wrestler to win, due to the fact that the wrestler just scores a lot better. I don't think this fight will end by a stoppage. I think this fight goes the distance, and with that being said, tends to favor the wrestler. Seeing also that Almabayev is yet to lose in 8 years, almost 8 years. It's a hell of a run to be on. And I do think Manel is susceptible, especially to wrestling, where we've seen in the past doesn't really go that well against wrestlers. So I'm picking Almabayev to win this fight via unanimous decision, and I don't really see Manel being able to avoid Almabayev's wrestling. That's basically the prediction video. Let me know in the comment section, what is your predictions for the entire fight, and what do you think is going to be fight of the night? I'd really appreciate it. Enjoy the event.